Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another mini training Monday. I am so excited. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We had the first goal setting session in person that I will tell you about in a minute. But I am very excited about my lovely guest today. I will introduce her in a second, but if you are new here, my name is Anna B. And I am a business coach. I help mums build online businesses through branding without the guilt and the overwhelm. So, welcome today. We are going to be talking to the lovely Megan Alves. Welcome, my darling.
Thank you, friend. Thank you for having me on this beautiful platform that you've created. I appreciate it.
I am so excited to have you. And listen, everybody, Megan, I got to spend time with her in person yesterday, which was absolutely wonderful. I get 2 days in a row. We were just talking about it. She attended the goal setting session and it was amazing.
That was
It
amazing.
was so,
I feel like we could have just hung out all
I
day.
know.
But like I think there was about six of us, right? Seven,
Yeah.
six.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and that space is just rooting for you is
Amazing.
beautiful. I could have really
Just so
it
there.
helped really get creative in that space for
It
sure. She
makes a
thought of
difference.
everything.
The energy and the plants that we were talking about. So, I mean, this is hilarious. Everybody, if you can see, look at me and Megan. Ta-da! We like plants. So we were happy in this space. But it really is, the energy of the people, the energy of the space, the plant, everything just added to this magical session. And I realized afterwards we went half an hour over. Yeah, I booked it for 3 hours. They could have kicked us out. I didn't realize. I was thinking, it's going to go, I've got 3 hours. It's going to be lovely. We were 3.5 hours. I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to get out now.
It was
Anyway,
so good though. I think that we all were just bouncing so many ideas off of each other as
yeah.
many moms and business owners know that sometimes it gets really lonely. So being able to sit down and really
Mm,
have you and Allie like guide us through some of the things to touch base on as far as goal settings go, it was really nice to just bounce a lot of those ideas. And what was really cool about that group yesterday, I don't know if you noticed, we have everyone from like baby entrepreneurs, right? Like we're just starting out, we don't know what we're doing. And then some of us who are like revamping all of the things. And then we have a few ladies who have like been doing this for a minute and just
yeah,
came in
so
with so it
true.
was great.
Well, that's a great point. Having that wide range of experience, and because people bring in different thoughts and ideas. It's not just the people that have been doing it for a long time. People at the beginning have really great questions, had different thoughts, and approach things a different way. So yeah, that's a really good point. And if anybody would like to join me, I'm going to be doing a virtual goal setting session of the same session that we did yesterday. Please join me because honestly, it's so amazing. Obviously, you can't be in person in the room, but this is the next best thing. It's going to be 90 minutes on Friday at 10 a.m. It's awesome. This is the third year I've been doing it. It's so special. I mean, and listen, isn't it funny, Megan? Like, if I had mailed this to you and said, "Oh, go and do this workbook," when would you have like put time
Yeah,
aside?
no,
No, no. So like
probably
having this
not.
on your calendar, yeah, exactly. Me neither. I mean, like having the time on the calendar, like come and join us in this space. This is dedicated time for you. This will help you, hold you accountable. You'll turn up. Okay, let's get on with today. Okay, so today, Megan is going to be talking to us about emotional regulation. She's going to be giving us tips, 3 tips to help us manage the emotional overload, right? But first, before we get to the training, I'd love you, my darling, to just introduce yourself. Tell us where you are, your children, your family, and how kind of this story of you getting into this work. Give us a brief.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So I'm Megan Alves. I actually have two boys. I'm a boy mom, and my oldest is now, well, in less than a month, he's going to be 13. So we have
Mm.
just entered the teenage stage for sure. And I have a 10-year-old. I live on a football field. They're both tackle football players. So talk about needing emotion regulation skills all day long because it's no joke. And I always say that I was actually brought into this field to help them manage through this chapter. I mean, I'm sure most of us remember bits and pieces of middle school and just trying to navigate all of those big emotions. And so I really started this journey. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by education trait and all the paperwork trait. Um, and the reason that I started that is I was an early elementary teacher first. And I realized in the classroom how much emotions and basic needs and basic education around focus was just really missing in the classroom. And I did not have time to teach it.
Mm.
Excuse me, still getting over a little something, but uh, and so I stepped out of that role and went back for my master's degree for social work. And my boys were 3 and 1 at that time. It
Oh my
was
gosh.
wild.
I would
But my
imagine
passion,
lunatic.
I know, yes. But my amazing mentor at the time, I met her, on a whim trying to help Nye County out. And she said,
Oh,
"Why aren't you a social worker?" I was like, "Oh, please don't pull me into this," right? And she had 2 spots left for her grad program. And I called my husband. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go back for my master's."
good
So
for you. That's
everything worked
amazing.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have loved the field ever since. I mean, it's been a very long journey,
Mm.
but fully licensed, I started in psychiatric work. And so I was in a psychiatric hospital for almost 6 years, from student intern to fully licensed therapist. I was on the children and adolescent unit for the
Wow.
majority of that work. And that was really intense, but just, oh, I fell in love with the work even more because it's just so much trauma. And so I really had a lot of additional trauma training at that time to help educate me a little bit more to continue to help in that capacity. And then I transferred over to substance and geriatric. And then I ended my career in the psych hospital at the military and first responders unit.
Mm.
And that's really when my passion for trauma work just blossomed and I became EMDR certified. I'm trained. I'm working on my certification right now. That's a long process too, and it's
Oh,
beautiful.
wow.
Yeah, and then when I left there, I started my own private practice, and that's peak mental health. And I was able to run my practice exactly like I hoped.
Mm.
Everyone that was coming to the hospital and everyone that was seeking therapy would be able to get. So I've stayed in the private practice with myself and just navigated the system with
Yeah.
all the things. But I was able to provide my clients with the care that I was searching for so
Mm.
long, just that really direct patient care. And I realized that I was full at capacity in a few months and I didn't
Wow.
know how I could help any further, but I also knew that my military, my first responders, they would come in and get the help and they're like, I gotta go. I just met a military veteran last week and he was a fighter pilot and he said if I ever told anyone I was struggling with my mental health I would have lost my license. I wouldn't have been able to fly again. So he had to just go through it on his own. And so my passion came through education and that's where Mental Summit started.
Mm.
And I really just decided to start all the education that I've gained and then everything that I've seen from children to adult, because we all are children on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got to
Yes.
heal that younger us as well. So the education platform is blossoming from that. All the education that can be gifted in therapy, obviously without the therapeutic alliance, but with
Mm.
the education portion of it in a monthly membership and very easy access tools. I mean, none of the videos are going to be more than 10 minutes so that our busy
Yeah.
parents, our single parents, our busy entrepreneurs okay, I'm struggling with this. I can access this tool.
What an
So
amazing thing that you've
I think I covered
created.
it all.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh,
Thanks.
fantastic. And so how long? So this program, the membership is actually a new section, right? A new thing that you built. So is there a wait list right now, or is it?
Yeah, great question. So the membership is completely separate from my therapy practice. So I really want to put an asterisk
Yeah.
there. I will always be a huge proponent of therapy. I'll always keep my therapy practice as well because I love that work. And so Mental Summit is the education membership, and there's going to be two-level memberships. The first group is actually starting at the end of this month. And then, so right now, the wait list is open for the next group. The reason that we're doing it in groups is so that I can make sure when I have the live meetings that everybody is in that group together, that are either ready, if they're not ready for a live conversation or like they can attend in privacy, totally fine with me,
Yeah,
but just to gain some of that community around. I mean, my mission is to break the mental health stigma.
yeah.
And so the wait list is now open and they can visit my website, which is mentalsummit.com, sign up for the website, but there's also a free emotion regulation check sheet there for you as soon as you sign up. So it's something to get you started until that membership opens.
Perfect. Amazing. And after we've had this conversation, recording will go in the group and you can just add the links directly to your website, to your social, or any PDF or any kind of guides that you think would be useful for the mamas in here. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, I think that every single mum in this group is going to be taking notes because we all need help with this. Our lives are so busy. And I think, our brains are not set up for this level of things
All the
and
things.
all the things. And so having tools like this are just so invaluable because we still want to do all the things, but we just want to be able to do it in a calmer, more controlled way.
Yeah.
And because we know how it feels when our emotions kind of get the best of us. So,
Yeah.
okay, fantastic. All right, let's go into the training. If you want to, what's the title? I want to make sure I get this right. Do you want to read it? Okay. Balance the overload, emotional regulation strategies for busy mompreneurs. 3 tips for managing emotional overload. Take it away.
And I love that you asked me to do a talk at this time with you because, I mean, the stress is up here, right?
Oh yeah.
It, the
Oh yeah.
demand,
Perfect timing. You're right.
oh my gosh, the demand on moms right now. I mean, I don't know about you, before I popped on, I was like, oh, I have to get this and this for the Christmas list,
Oh
right?
yes. Yeah,
And then it's
absolutely.
like
No,
switching
you're
gears.
right. Yeah, this is a
Yeah. Are you feeling it?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's juggling all the things. I feel it, like uh when like starting back at school, getting all the things in line, signing up for all the stuff, getting everybody ready, getting them all their stuff, and then the lead up to the holidays for
Yeah.
sure. Because there's all the
Yeah.
things, there's all the parties, all the things and sports of this, and we want to be able to do that. And then we obviously if we like, so I celebrate Christmas, I'm getting the presents, I'm planning this, and we're having Boxing Day, which is the thing in England. So I have people there's all the things to organize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that I thought about coming in, to chat is where do we start and how are some of the ways that, I have learned over the years. And when I've seen moms at their peak of stress level, one of the things often missing in their day is putting themselves first.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
putting everyone and everything first, right? Even from our family, the kids, to the to-do list and the house cleaning. Everything comes before us. And I even see it in my private practice so often. And when the light bulb goes off, when they say, oh, if I take care of myself, I can take care of my family better. It is the
Mhm.
most exciting thing for me to feel on this end because I know what that can transform into for them, their kids, their relationship. And so, one of the things I often say is try to create an emotional reset routine. What is an emotional reset routine? Find the things that bring you joy and start to list them out. Have a notepad in your phone. I mean, we often have our phones, so I just say the phone
Yeah, it's
is,
yeah.
right? Just have something really quick. Before I started using notes, I would text myself
Mhm.
and, just a list of things that quickly bring me joy. And if I start to feel, and I don't often say that, you know, I promise you on this one, but I promise you that there's a 0 to 10, right? All of us have that little gap of 0 is my calm, 10 is my highest stress. please start to notice what your 0 to 10 feels like. I'm sure for
Mhm.
many of us that are busy, it's like, I feel like I go from 0 to 10. I ask my kids to clean their room 10 times, and all of a sudden I'm at 10,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I lost it again.
Hmm.
But if I would have slowed down a little bit and noticed I was getting to that 4 or 5,
Right. Before you
and
get
I'm
there.
yes, and I'm sure your 4 or 5 looks very different from my four or
Mhm.
five, looks very different from our partner's 4 or 5, right? And so
Yeah.
if we know that within ourselves and start to explore that with curiosity a little bit,
Mhm.
then we can start to gauge, oh, okay, I feel my jaw clenching. Like I know that next I'm going to yell and I don't want to yell. So let me go do this emotion reset. And that might be, I'm going to put myself in timeout for 2 seconds. I'm going to take a deep breath. If deep breathing is not your go-to, then maybe have a cheat sheet of music that really helps to
Mhm.
calm your nervous system. So, if you're into the emo music, it might not be the right time for it. That's going to be for later, I'm sure.
Maybe not a good idea.
But maybe not a good idea if we're already up there, but something that's going to calm that nervous system so you can reset. Is there anything that you tend to go to? I know we talk about calm strips all the time, right?
Yes, yes. So, this is, I've shown this before. This is Megan who introduced this to me and gave it me. And it's like back in my phone, but this is just
Yeah.
amazing, just to, and I was saying it kind of just like brings me back into my body. I think that's what, I don't know what it actually does. That's the way I feel about it. When you get taken off and you just like swelling, this just brings me back into the present moment. So, but I do, there's that walking outside. I just walk outside the back, breathe, let the sun like hit my face, and like I
Yeah.
can, that takes 30 seconds.
You know
Um,
what's so crazy is I read a research study and I can probably link it because I usually save it. I think that the research studies showed 10 minutes a day can lower your stress level by 20% of movement.
really?
10 minutes. So can you imagine?
Yeah,
Like for those of
that's
us that
amazing.
include that, and I mean, meet yourself where you're at, like get outside, go for a
Yes.
walk. 10
Yeah,
minutes, I can lower by 20%. And many of us, that 20% is huge
huge.
when it comes to
Absolutely.
mamahood. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love that
Yeah,
you said
no,
that. Yeah.
that being outside and walking is something that I have prioritized. And I know I see you on your walk as well, like it really
Yeah.
just really helps me. It also helps me with ideas and
Yeah.
work and stuff, but it really just, I'm like, I just need to get out. What else?
Yeah.
I actually do have a list of different things, and of course I can't remember, but walking
Of course.
outside,
That's why
um,
we make a list, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah. Well, this is
when
exactly, you know
yes,
what? And this is part
yes,
of it, remembering to look at your list
yes,
when you're in this minute,
yeah,
but I have started if so I am like, I'm neurodivergent. I have like there's like a sensory, like a noise thing. When I'm tired and there's like the dog barking, the kids arguing, Brad's asking me something, and there's music playing. It's like overload. And I
yes,
never, this is why it's so important to know and understand and figure out who you are. Because
yeah.
before, I thought there was just something like I just thought there was something wrong with me, just something, whatever. And this is only in recent discovery in the last like 4-ish years. And
What a powerful discovery for you to have. Nice work.
so
Yeah.
powerful. And then I don't feel so guilty. And what I do now is I just step out the kitchen. Just,
Yeah.
I'm just
I
gonna,
need a 2 minute timeout.
yeah,
And
yeah,
honestly, I
yeah.
co-regulate with my kids that way as well. And I often will tell moms, let your kids know, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because if they hear you say it,
Hmm.
they're modeling after us all the time. They're really looking up to us for that. And I am not perfect. I am not saying this as by
Yeah,
any
yeah.
means, but this is definitely something that I have seen in my home to be so helpful. And so many moms that I have, that had the pleasure of supporting through their journey, you know, I'm feeling
Right.
really overwhelmed. I'm feeling,
Yeah.
like use the big words, right? Or
Yes.
if they're
Yeah.
if they're much younger, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I feel it in my stomach. I just need 2 seconds to calm down or, a minute to
That's
calm
great.
down, depending.
Yeah.
And so then they know. And if the kids follow you, because sometimes that happens, right? Then I will often say that co-regulation will be, will you take a deep breath with me? Because it's going to help me
Mhm.
calm down.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great idea. Amazing. I love it.
And it's not always,
Of course,
it
hey,
doesn't
look,
always work,
we
right?
can we can't do everything, but having something, the more we practice it, the better we'll get, or the better we'll remember. But like I said, I've got probably about 8 things on my list, and I can't remember.
Right.
So if I was, and I'm not
Yeah.
even a 10, I'm good right now. So, we
Yeah.
need to have it
Yes.
written down so we
And
can
that's
reference it.
Yeah, and I love that because that's really when I mentioned like the emotional reset routine.
Yeah.
Part of that routine, please make it a practice, right? Like
Mm,
you've made walking a practice every day
yeah,
or
absolutely.
as
Yeah.
often as you need. And now I almost feel like it's like a non-negotiable to start my morning
Yeah.
is I get the kids started, even if it's a 5-minute walk and I come back just to get that early morning sunshine has been really important. And so that's almost a non-negotiable
Yeah.
for my morning.
Mhm.
And now that my kids are older, I know this would be tough with the babies, but now my kids know. I say I'm going to go for a walk, I'll be back. And then when I come back, I'm so much more centered and grounded for that morning. But it has to be a practice, right? So if you're doing that morning routine, check those 7 tools that you wrote down for yourself, because the more that you activate that when you're calm, the better the memory sensor will go off to help you gain those tools. Oh, I remember I wrote that down, right? Because if we start to get to that 0 to 4, I'll just throw in something separate, but I often say having similar language for ourselves with our kids is really helpful. And so I'll often say my lid has flipped, which means, and I've talked to my kids, I don't know if you've heard this or any of the moms have heard this. It's actually from Dan Siegel. He talks a lot about trauma and the brain. And so if you think about your hand as, just a model for our brain, when we're at 0, it's calm, cool, and collected. And think of your thumb as the reasoning factor. So if our brain is calm, every top part, bottom part, and our reasoning factor part of our brain is communicating really, really well, right? You see
Okay.
the
Yeah.
2-year-old playing, we can say, hey, 2 minutes, right? But if that lid is flipped, and
Mm,
now they're at that 10, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 10, that reasoning factor is
mm.
not in communication very well. And so even as adults, I often think about that 2-year-old having the temper tantrum. Of course we are, because my reasoning factor can't help me. So my lid is flipped, which makes it really difficult for me to access my tools. So I just need to do something to help calm that nervous system, because I might not be able to do all those things I put on my list
Right.
until I come down a little bit. So the more that I practice it, the more that memory recall can have a better opportunity to say, oh, where did I write those skills down at? Where if I'm at a 10,
You're not gonna be
I
able
don't know
to.
what to
I love
do,
that. I like the
right?
visual. And I like that you're sharing this with your kids. I think that I've been trying to make a point of that in other areas, but I like introduce because I just now just take myself off. I don't explain, but I have been doing that in other areas. So I think that's a really good. And then it also will help them. And imagine if they just grow up and this is part of who they are. They don't have to learn it as a 40
Yeah.
something year old. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
how amazing. And if they all do that, I mean, yeah, incredible. Okay, fantastic. All right, let's
Right.
move on to number 2.
So we've touched on it already, but that was incorporate moving or grounding into your day.
Great.
So,
Yeah,
we really went over why that's beneficial. I mean, the
yeah,
research is already there. And so, if you're a mom that is in that early stage of child birth, that you just had the
yeah.
baby and that routine is just haywire, I know that that's going to be pretty tough, but please, as you make that list of the things that bring joy, get really curious about what you like to do with movement,
Yeah,
right? And so even
absolutely.
if you can't quite have a routine around it yet,
Hmm.
if baby is fussy and moms, we often regulate by that bouncing, like put on some music and bounce.
Yeah,
Really think about
yeah.
something,
Mhm.
and grounding is all about trying to hit as many of the 5 senses as you can. And
Okay. I
so,
never thought about it like that.
if you can, one of my favorite techniques with grounding is called a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And
Yeah.
you can put that into your practice as well. So you just want to name 5 things that you see in the room. So we're hitting that site. 4 things that you can hear and really try and be intentional, right? If the baby's crying and you notice that dysregulation, I was one of those moms, as you were talking about
Yeah,
the sensory sounds, you're just like,
absolutely. Me
and
too. Yeah.
right, try to like you notice, you hear it, but try and think and pay attention to a couple other things that you can
Yeah.
hear to help like, kind of bring that sensory out a little bit more. 3 things that you can feel. You talked about the calm strips. I usually always have mine close by too. Oh, here it is. Yes, I keep mine close by too. It's usually
Yeah.
like right by my keyboard. Um,
Amazing.
Tactile. So touching, even if you're at your desk, right? You touch your desk to your pants, to your sweater. Those are 3 different tactile. The reason I put these in when I gifted those is it helps the rest and digest. And so if you think about becoming overstimulated, it hits the areas of our brain that helps with rest and digest. So if we're in fight or flight, we want something to kind of hit those sensory receptors to calm back down. And then 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And you don't have to, if you're eating a ton of things, change the numbers around,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's always a great way to just practice and explore it and get
I love
curious
that.
with that.
I
Mhm.
actually that reminded me. That is one of the things. I don't know if I do the whole thing, but when if I'm feeling a little bit stressed and I go for a walk, I can spend a lot of time in my head. I could go for a full walk and not even see a thing. So that's how I begin my
Yes.
walk. I name like 5 things that I can see that are like maybe some are far away, some are close, and that just
Yes.
brings
Yeah.
me. I'm like, okay, this is where I am.
Here. And that's that grounding, right? Like we're
Yeah,
here and we're present.
absolutely.
We're like you're saying, if the mind is going, we
Yeah.
are setting off a lot of those chemical responses of stress. And so when we ground, I've even been that weirdo at the park. I'll take my shoes and socks off and
Oh,
I'll put my
nice.
feet in
Yeah.
the grass to really, just really ground and feel as many senses as I can. Judge me all you want, but I don't want to be the one yelling. So,
You know what? So it's my friend in England has this amazing forest school, and she
oh
gets
my
all
gosh.
these kids that are out in the woods. It's amazing.
Yes.
And
Oh,
she
that makes my
does
heart so
this,
happy.
I know, right?
I
And she
wanna I wanna attend.
walk. I know, right? She does this walk. I can't what she calls it, the mud walk or the barefoot walk. And she creates this kind of, it's not an obstacle course, but I mean, it's England and it's cold, some, often, and it's wet often. You just take your shoes off and the kids walk through, say, the mud. Then there's like maybe some, like a wooden, like kind of bridge, and then they walk across it. So there's different things to feel. And it's
All the
so
textures. Yeah.
incredible, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. I love that.
And I think it was you and I, or maybe it was Allie too, when you guys were talking about the nature walk. Um, and you guys got back from it, and I was so sad I missed it. And you guys were like, the amount of ideas that came out of that walk was so amazing. And of course, you guys had deep connection in there, which I will always say is like a pro tip to getting some movement. If you have somebody that you can get some movement with,
Yeah.
especially, as a mom and mom entrepreneur, that oftentimes this feels very isolating.
Yes.
That is such a
Yeah.
beautiful way to get some of those deep connections, which is something, tip wise that
Yeah.
I would add in there is find those people, right? Find your people to help. Again, that's probably a lot of that co-regulating too.
Mhm.
But one of the things that's so amazing and that really drew me to EMDR, which is eye movement rapid desensitizing, that many therapists are trained and certified in. Please go on emdria.org to make sure that they're trained correctly. I'm going to just put the asterisk out
Oh
there.
yeah. Yeah.
But EMDR actually started because Shapiro was on a walk with one of her clients, and she realized every time she went on this walk with this client, he was processing so much more clear and so much more faster. And she realized that this walkway that they were on, there was different flowers on one side compared to the other, and they would often compare the flowers. So he was often tracking back and forth with his eye movement, and that's where her research started. So we have a lot of natural processing that goes on when we're out in nature because we're able to
Oh,
just kind of
interesting. I
like
didn't know
hit the
that.
left and right side of the brain a little bit more.
I,
So,
it's fascinating. We had someone in come and do a mini training about a year ago, and that was the first thing I'd ever heard of EMDR. But I find it fascinating. And then a friend of mine just did it recently and found it extremely beneficial. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things out there that we can do on our own, or if we need help, go find someone to support us. Amazing. Okay, so
I
what's
think
the
you said
last?
something really important that I wanted to
Okay.
is that our bodies often really give us cues on what helps us calm down.
Mm,
And so, as you're saying, like your walk is just, I'm sure you went on walks before and now you're so much more in tune with yourself. They're like, this is what I need. So
absolutely.
getting curious with what helps you calm down is so important.
You
Yeah.
know, what's really interesting, I think, you said something earlier, made me think of it. Sometimes we don't even know what those cues are. You said like when you clench your jaw and you're on a number three or whatever it is. I think half the thing is, we're so busy that we actually don't take the time to have that awareness. So,
Yes.
like starting there, okay, and I've started to do this. I hadn't even thought about like that kind of thing. I always think about how I feel physically, but I always think about
Yeah.
here. But now I'm going to be thinking, like when I start to get anxious or getting up that chart, I've tried to become like, like, okay, like what is happening right now? How am I feeling? And being
Yes.
really aware of that.
Curious.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's,
And curious is
yeah,
different than judgment. You said something earlier
yeah,
like, oh, what's wrong with me? Right? Like that is such a judgment on ourselves. And that can block our curiosity and what's happening. Where if you can just think about it about like, oh, what's happening? And that could be, I often teach through therapy is that knowing that 0 to 10 is really writing down what that feels like. Obviously, it's going to be, and maybe it's not obvious to many of us because in the beginning we don't know, but it's going to be different for different triggers. So if you can keep in mind that 0 to 10 scale, and on one side of that temperature scale, really list out what that emotional
yeah.
reaction is. And then on the other side, what is my physical
I
reaction?
love that.
What's
I love
happening?
this. Yes, I'm going to
Yeah.
do this because this is fascinating. I never thought about it like that. But like I said, like the more we know, the more we understand ourselves, the less we can judge, the more we can be aware, and then we can get these tools to like, okay, I love that. I'm gonna list that out because I'm super curious what
Yeah.
happens to me at a 4 or compared to a 9, and you know, yeah, super interesting, fascinating. That's a really great tool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Um, and what is
And
the
yes,
fine? Yeah.
the last one was visualization and a technique that I found really, really helpful. The visualization I mean, I actually learned about it because of the kids in sports, right? I didn't know my youngest actually struggled. I haven't seen him ever struggle with anxiety. So he had a performance anxiety and I didn't even notice it until he kept asking for stomach medicine or,
Oh,
and I was like, oh, he has performance anxiety. Oh my gosh.
mm,
And so we would practice visualizing him going on the field and even the excitement sometimes. I don't know if you've ever felt it like excitement and anxiousness feels so similar
yes,
to
yes.
so many of us. And
That was a
so
real epiphany for me last year. Someone said, I was working with someone that said, excitement, anxiety is the same feeling. It's just kind of like having an awareness, what you do with that. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I love that. Again, that's so powerful to know, like, oh, I know what I'm feeling. And
Yes.
as soon as he said, oh, I'm actually really excited to be out there, it was such a power that he gained back where he thought he just was just so nervous and that's where the anxiety can start. And so he was able to slow down and visualize himself out there, getting friendly with that excitement and
Yeah.
calming that anxiety down. And he would walk himself through before we got out of the car.
Mm,
And I often do it. I mean, I even did it coming in here, right?
yeah.
Most of us, if we do different things or new conversations, or we tend to feel some of that excitement and nervousness and visualizing ourselves. A lot of athletes
Mm,
do it, visualizing ourselves walking through something more calm or accomplishing something and feeling that excitement at the end can help us take some of those smaller steps. So just seeing yourself taking that deep
mm,
breath and having that power back.
mm,
Then let's say you can't quite get yourself there, then maybe get curious that you might be a little bit too heightened on that scale. So I often tell myself, okay, Megan, stop. But it's a true stop, not like our mom stops, right? Like Yeah, let me take
Yeah,
a
right.
break as I clean up,
Yeah,
as I
yeah.
do all of the things. This is a true, okay,
Okay.
stop. And really, I'm allowing myself permission. S is stop. The T, take a few deep breaths.
Mm,
Really get back in tune with yourself. Just be
mhm,
present in that moment. And then O is observe. Okay, self, what's happening? Oh, I see the baby is screaming. We just spilled some milk. I'm like, my sensory is
yeah.
on overload. Oh, of course it is, right? Okay, I'm gonna go wash my hands in some cold water, help that nervous system calm down. Maybe take a couple more deep breaths, and then I can proceed more calmly, but
Yeah.
not, right? Like it's hard to go into go mode if we're so
Oh,
dysregulated. We're
yeah.
just going and we're now, like you said, not paying attention. So being able to give yourself that permission of how important it is to actually stop.
Mm.
Oftentimes we're just being human doing,
Oh,
right? Or
yeah.
instead of being human beings.
Mm.
And that's where we hear a lot of I hear it a lot from the older mamahood is I was just so busy doing that I feel like I missed a lot of being present. And oftentimes, I mean, we all do it, right? Because it's busy. There's a lot. So
Absolutely.
some just letting it calm down.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I found, the mental rehearsal of something so valuable, such an incredible, and it doesn't take long. You can shut your eyes, you
Right.
know, and just go through the thing that you're going to be doing. And it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use it a lot
Well,
and set
yeah.
intention as well.
Yes, I love setting intention. What am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yeah. Again,
Right?
it's super quick.
Yeah.
Before I get on a call, every time I get on a call or do something like yesterday, I'm always like, what do I want people to feel? What do I want my intention to be?
I
And
love that.
and I do the mental rehearsal I've been doing the mental rehearsal. I wish I could remember where I heard this, but what I discovered was it was something I kind of did without knowing it was a thing. And then when I knew it
Yes.
was a thing, I kind of doubled down on it, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, okay, great. My instinct, well, this is a thing to
Yes.
actually, a tool to use.
Well, and I think what's really important in what you just said, Anna, is that you practiced it for a long time. And
Mm,
now it's easy for you. I
yes.
remember first trying when somebody told me to sit and meditate as a high achieving, anxious person myself.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Somebody telling me to meditate for 20 minutes was absolutely out of my scope of ability at that time. Yeah, painful, right? But I was like, you know what? What if I started with like 1 or 2 minutes and then eventually grow from there? And so, again, to piggyback on what you said, is it feels easy, but I oftentimes in the beginning, it's not easy, right? It's not
Yeah.
easy to actually slow down and visualize, and especially if we've been in the clinical world, it's called parentified, but if we've often been that oldest child, right? And we've always just been doing, visualizing and imagery might be really challenging, but with practice, it can come
Mhm.
back. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of free walk through YouTubes, and things like that can start that visualizing to help kind of flex that muscle that might just be a little dormant.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. Fantastic. Okay, let's do a recap of the three things very quickly. If you just want to go through the three to
Sure.
remind everybody, that would be amazing.
Yeah. So
So
the first one is, and I'm going to just go back to some notes, is to create that emotional reset routine.
that's what it says here.
Write
Yeah.
down those favorites so you have them and practice them. Try number two would be incorporate some type of movement in your day and some grounding practices in your day. Sometimes those look very similar, and sometimes we can combine those. Like you said, when I'm on my walk, I can really use those grounding tools. So that's number two. And then number three would be try some visualization and the stop technique if you can't quite get to those tools just yet to allow that nervous system to calm down. And pro
Amazing.
tip,
Yeah.
co-regulate with the kiddos. Say it out loud with them
Yes.
and walk them
Yeah.
through
I
it
really
too.
love that. I never thought of doing that in that way.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. Thank you so much, Charlene. That is
Oh my
so
gosh.
valuable, such useful tips. And if I haven't, because I got into the conversation, I haven't checked if there's any messages, sorry. But if you have any comments or questions for Megan, please just pop them in the comments and we'll both check them out. And we can answer anything in there. Megan will be putting all her details to follow her, her website, all the stuff. But thank you, my darling. I really
Oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome.
And you also stepped in last minute, which because somebody wasn't able to make it. So I really, really appreciate it.
Oh,
Um,
thank you for having me. It
oh,
was
sorry.
great to see you and hang out again.
I know, I know. I can't wait for the next time. Amazing.
Yes,
Oh, well, you're going to have to come and get some more plants, remember? So
it's true.
you let me know when you're over here and I'll meet you there.
Okay. Twist my arm, right?
I know,
More
right?
plants and
I'll
hanging in that
bribe you.
space.
I'll bribe you with plants.
Perfect.
All right, my love. Well, listen, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Everybody else, have a great rest of your Monday. And I will speak to you all very soon. All right.
Have a
Take care.
beautiful day. Thank you.
Bye.